What's up, y'all? Shep here, and I am a bit of a madman for this one. Claude 3.7 Sonnet just came out, and as you can see here, it comes with a very nifty extended thought process option, which allows us to do test time compute basically, where the model just thinks harder about your question in this thinking block before it responds. And as part of that, I actually created a thinking Claude protocol where we can force Claude to think in Unicode by mapping four different buckets of how it thinks, its styles. So initial thoughts, key deductions, considerations of uncertainty, and conclusions into different math sans fonts, as you can see here. And this is inspired by Thinking Claude by Richards 1999999, where it lets Claude think and reason in a very like thorough and robust organic thought process for the model uh, before it gives you an answer. And the idea here is by doing this in Unicode, we are not only using just plain text or plain language, plain English for the model to reason through, we're also giving it a semi-symbolic way to do that. So using symbols as part of the reasoning process. And by making each bucket its own symbol family, so different Unicode fonts, like we can see here, theoretically, what this allows the model to do is reason differently and access different latent space in the neural network behind the language model to give us an answer. So if we look at this in practice, I'll go back to the one that I just had open here. What do you think about thinking in Unicode? And you can see here, it starts out by thinking in math italic font, and then it moves into mathematical bold, and it's got some regular text in there. And then it has the considerations of uncertainty in fracture font, and then we have conclusions in script font. So if I were to add a new one in here, what do you think the best way to make a YouTube video about semi-symbolic reasoning with Claude is? And we will submit that, and it'll think for a second here. And because we have this extended timer turned on, it's going to start thinking. See, it's starting with the Unicode for italic, and it's definitely slower. There's pros and cons to this. One pro is you're accessing that different latent space. Maybe there's something you can get out of this process that is a bit more novel than what you get by keeping it on the guardrails of, traditional text. But the challenges are it's slow because it's typing in Unicode. There's a lot more tokens per character for this. And so it's token intensive. It's slow. And if you were doing this via API, this would nuke your token usage very quickly. But because we're using Claude for desktop in this instance, not my problem. And we get to see how the model is actually reasoning through this request. First section is the first bucket of thinking. Then we kind of have this second bucket that it's going through now. Honestly, I don't really know how long this is going to take to do. But oh, nice. There we go. It moved into the next section here where it's addressing uncertainties. Sometimes it'll cycle back and forth, and you can prompt that a little bit in how you ask it the question. Reason about this recursively or iteratively. And yeah, as you can see, it considered this like uncertainty, went back into sort of the preliminary thinking, and now it's still driving in sort of this like shaping of the problem and solution space here. So I'm going to just fast forward you guys to the end of the thinking, and we will see what the actual output is in just a second. While it's doing this, one thing that's worth pointing out is because the token consumption is so high, sometimes you can hit the token usage window pretty quickly, like the max response length, before you would typically otherwise, just because this approach is so token intensive. So in case it does that here and we don't actually end up getting into the actual answer instead of thinking, that's why. Okay, cool. So we can see here what we've got at the end. Closing out with that beautiful, beautiful mathematical script font. Based on all these considerations, I'm now ready to provide a comprehensive answer to the original question. I think the best approach would be a demonstration-focused video that shows concrete examples of Claude's semi-symbolic reasoning abilities combined with clear visualizations that could help explain the underlying concepts. That sounds familiar. I think that's what we're doing right now. And yeah, you'll see uh, using this response finished my available Claude usage for the next like hour or so. But pretty interesting. It goes through all this reasoning, and then at the end, what it's putting out is still a classic response because we're not telling it write in Unicode. We're telling it think in Unicode, and then share what you found with us. But so far, in some of my preliminary exercises, I found this is a bit more of a thorough thinking process, interestingly. The fact that it can kind of bucket them of I'm doing step one, I'm doing step two, step three. Okay, now we're going back to one, back to two. Let's, cycle through this a little bit. It lets it think differently than it would using just plain text, which is certainly something worth exploring. But I hope you guys thought this was interesting. This is Unicode Thinking Claude. I have the GitHub repo in the comments/description for the video. And yeah, if you guys end up using this and making something cool, finding a neat exploration, I'd love to hear it. Give me a shout. Share your thoughts in the comments. Shep out. Peace. Peace, peace, peace.